Returning from the early days of yore of Medarot 1 and finally making his return, it is ELF00 Megaphant, with the kit of Power Hammer, Double Guard 300, Tank Legs, and the leg ability of Super Armor, which renders the user immune to paralyze ailments, such as shock, freeze, or tornado, a certain number of times relative to the rank of the part. Now, of course, as returnee from the early days, it is very, very nice to see yet another OG return with a very fresh-looking model and looking very, very nice all the same. And not just with the looks, his kit, even if it stays moderately similar to what he had, definitely was a massive glow-up to what he had before. Power Hammer, and of course his only form of actual combat, is a melee-based attack, which is also a full AoE, meaning it will damage all parts equally and spread load the damage. However, Power Hammer in particular also comes with an added bonus, in that you deal 1.5 times more damage as long as the user's legs are intact. Of course, with the penalty of no dodge and no defend until you finish your cooldown, which will really amp up what Megaphant used to have in the early days, which typically was just basic hammer and nothing more. Guard 300 on both arms is a defensive-based skill that, when active, will allow the user to intercept all incoming blows as long as the shield stays intact and as long as the user stays on the center line. At the caveat that it also will mitigate about 300 damage flat from any incoming attack, making the attack just a little bit weaker than it was before, and making it easier to more likely tank the blow on top of that. Now, normally I tend to grade bots that have guard 300, guard 500 a little harshly, but given how Megaphant actually makes the kit work so well in his favor for a number of reasons, is the particular reason why I actually rated him so highly, despite him of course being tank-legged. And on the topic of being tank-legged, his leg stats are honestly horrendously high, even for tank-legged standards. About 568 mobility, which is about the sweet spot of where tank legs typically tend to be at, so that's not necessarily the high point. The big high point is actually that his melee resist and his shoot resist at 1929 and 1995 respectively are both massively high, which means even before the passive 20% damage reduction tank legs get, and before any other damage reduction or even the minus 300 from guard 300, it's going to be very, very difficult to shoot this elephant and take him down in 1 or 2 hits easily, because he just has so much defense working in his favor that it's going to be very difficult to kill him off quickly. On top of that, he's already massively tanky as it is, with a very high HP pool on top of having all this high defense. The head alone is about about 4,000 HP, arms about 4,400 each, and legs at about almost 4,800, means again, very, very high HP pool, packed with high damage reduction, means this elephant is not going anywhere. When he plants himself on the line, it's guaranteed he's not moving. And of course, with the super armor ability, that makes him even more versatile in his dedicated role as a defender, given that he won't be very easy to stop or stun in order to prevent him from getting in your way. One other big thing to note about Megaphant as well is, supposedly, as of this morning, people mentioned it, and according to the official producer, it stands as it is. Both of Megaphant's arms are also non-heavy, which makes him even more versatile on the field, whether his legs are intact or whether they are broken, without anything overly holding him back. And this also is something that works very much so in Megaphant's favor all the more, because he's only packing one heavy part, and contrary to most other dedicated shielder types or even tank-legged shielder types, which are usually triple heavy, Megaphant does not suffer from this weakness, which means he's not only massively tanky and has a very high damage reduction rate, but he's also harder to take down than most other shielders because he's not packing all the weight. That being said, for these reasons, I do have to rate Megaphant rather highly for a tank leg, and very rare that I would particularly do so, at a very solid 7 out of 10. Even though dedicated meat shields such as guard 300, guard 500, like I said, I tend to grade rather harshly, Megaphant takes a lot of that and spins it in his favor in so many ways that even by himself, he can be a very dedicated and very versatile defender type if you do choose to use him, and if you are able to buy enough time for him to get to the line and do his job. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him moderately equally, about a 7 out of 10 as well. His tank legs are generally, again, something I tend not to advocate for too often, but with resist stats at almost 2,000 each and a heavy limit of 3, those legs alone are something you really can't sleep on, to be completely honest. And even if guard 300 isn't something that you use super often either, just having him as non-heavy shields honestly makes him even better all the same, as something that you could use more or less kind of anywhere. And then of course, Power Hammer, even if it is a heavy part, that is kind of to be expected that it's going to be with the higher base damage, and something that you can just kind of embrace going into the picture.